When I was a young child and people asked me what I wanted to be when I was older, I had two dreams in mind. I either wanted to be a doctor or a chicken catcher. I'm now a professional freestyle skier. I specialize in slopestyle and in big air. I've even won some bling. And I also have a degree in neuroscience. Now, for the curious minds in here, it was my older brother, Julian, who inspired me to be a chicken catcher. He told me that they made a lot of money around Christmas time because he said that everybody ate chicken for their Christmas dinner. Well, I'm 28 years old. I have still never caught a chicken in my life. And perhaps that's not so bad, especially now that I know people don't even eat chicken at Christmas. So I discovered freestyle skiing at the age of 20, when I was in my first year of university. Winning an X Games and an Olympic gold medal 7 years after this picture was taken is a fate I never expected. Oh, there's no commentary. Oh, this is Sarah Höfflin dropping in switch. She's doing a switch double cork 900. Sarah Höfflin straight out of Geneva, Switzerland. And now she's dropping in switch again, going in for the switch double 1080, and it's a gold medal. Let's take it. Yeah, you don't have to clap. This is a TED Talk. We haven't got much time. So ever since the Olympic Games in Pyeongchang in 2018, I found that a lot of people have taken a vivid interest in my unusual journey. And they've gone as far as describing it as remarkable or inspiring. But the truth is, my journey has been an absolute roller coaster of failures, luck, and successes. What I learned throughout my convoluted journey, and perhaps the reason why it's so convoluted, is that nothing ever goes to plan. Whenever I set myself ambitious goals or high expectations, I found that I would just try way too hard, and I would just end up completely blowing it. So here's one thing that I've started doing a little bit more recently: lowering expectations. Now, expectations, they're usually set when we're very young children by our parents, carers, or teachers. And they are the ones who will teach us their values and ideals. And we get praised when we meet those expectations, and we get reprimanded when we don't. And it's not actually until we get a little bit older that we start having expectations of our own. The natural progression in one's life means that eventually we start setting goals of our own, and we decide where we want to set the bar. Now, of course, there is a transition period in between being a child and an adult where we sometimes share, but more often clash, with our elders' expectations. It's called being a teenager. Parents in this room, how many times might you have asked your teenage kids to tidy their bedrooms or to clean the dishes? And when you get home from work, neither of those things have been done. Of course, sometimes people expect a bit more from us than what we want to or are able to deliver. But expectations go both ways. Sometimes we expect too much of ourselves. And that's when the people who care about us will try to bring us back down to earth. Now, I remember when I was a kid, I told my doctor that I wanted to be a doctor myself, and this is what he said. Well, if you just keep working hard and get good grades, you'll see, it'll just happen. Well, it's definitely missing a few things, but honestly, this advice has really stuck for my entire life, and what I love about it is the simplicity of it. One thing leads to another. Now, the fundamental problem with it is that he didn't account for uncontrollable factors. And so this narrative that if we work hard at something, we will achieve what we want, it's just not true. I expected a lot of myself when I was in secondary school. I spent most of my teenage life trying to get into medical school, and it's something that I worked really, really hard for. I actually ended up in the local newspaper when I was 18 years old for having the highest grades in my school. At the time, I was volunteering in 2 different hospitals on 3 different wards. I was working for the ambulance service, and I was attending every single conference that I could go to on how to get into medical school. And I never got in. I applied 5 times over, 5 separate years, to a total of 9 different universities across the UK. And I never got accepted. Now, at that point, I'm thinking that maybe I should have become a chicken catcher after all. So, why didn't I get into med school? You know, I might have had the best portfolio that I could have had for myself and given my absolute best. But since there's only a limited number of places in medical school in the UK, perhaps it just means that the other successful applicants were better than me. Maybe the person who read my personal statement didn't really like it. And there's absolutely nothing that I can do about this. So what my doctor should have said is, if you work hard, then you will probably get good grades. And then if you do get good grades, then you'll see. It might happen. Well, in skiing, it's the same thing. I can train as hard as I want, I can do my very best performances, and even get a good score. But there is absolutely nothing that I can do about the other competitors being better than me. And so setting ourselves expectations like, I will become a doctor, or I will be the next world champion in my sport, they're just not very good goals to set. They don't really give you any guidance on how to actually get there. A better goal in skiing, for example, might be, I'm going to learn these sets of tricks, and then if I can do them in competition, then I'm probably going to do quite well. And if I don't, I'm just going to have to keep working, keep practicing. I was born and raised in Switzerland, and then I moved to the UK when I was 12 years old. And I went to university in Cardiff, and that's where I discovered freestyle skiing. I quickly learned to do backflips on my skis on a dry slope, which it's a carpet, and I swear it's made up of lion's claws. I put my teeth through my lower lip on this occasion. I took part in all the university competitions. I won my first pair of twin-tip skis, which you need for freestyle skiing, and I was hooked. So when I finished university in 2013, I decided to pursue a new passion. And I decided that I was going to go and do a ski season. Just 1 year is what I told my parents. 1 year of fun, and then I'll get a real job. Well, it's now nearly 2020. I'm still doing ski seasons. So this is me in France. My first season was in Tignes, and it was fantastic. I lived in a 13-square-meter studio. I was completely broke. And in contrast to the UK, the weather was either excellent or excellent. It was either sunny or snowing. And when I finished that ski season, I did actually go back to Manchester, to England. I got a real job working in an office. I was a consultant or something like that in a pharmaceutical firm. I hated it. And so I decided to go and do a second ski season. And this time I went to Mirabel in France. And that ski season, I decided to take part in my first ever international competition. And the Swiss team was there, and I knew that the Swiss coach was there. And obviously I was extra nervous, and I completely crashed. But he still came up to me at the end of the competition, and he said to me in his very thick Swiss German accent, "Hallo, bist du Swiss?" "Yeah, I'm Swiss." "Do you want to ski for Switzerland?" "Yeah." And so in May that year, 2015, I started training with the Swiss ski team. And once again, I'd reset my expectations. I was going to be a professional skier. Nuh-uh. It did not happen that fast. In November that year, I crashed doing a ski trick that I knew very, very well, and I broke my ACL in my left knee. The ACL is a key ligament, and it has a very long recovery time, and it meant that I was going to miss the entire ski season. I went from having absolutely no real-life plans to having a calendar full of really exciting competitions. I was supposed to travel to South Korea to compete in the Olympic test event. I was supposed to ski in a stadium full of people in Boston. And I was supposed to travel the world on my first ever World Cup tour as a professional skier. And just like that, in a flash of a moment, I completely blew it. I was 25 years old, which is considered too old to begin a career in freestyle skiing. And I spent the next 9 months rehabbing in the gym and relearning how to walk. I'm going to tell you something. I still don't know if I suffered more physically or mentally. So what I learned during my injury time is that becoming a professional skier, it's just not the right goal. There is no guidance on how to get there. So when I came back in the winter of 2017, I just focused on having fun, on skiing well, and skiing smart. It was not about winning competitions, it wasn't about becoming a pro skier or becoming famous or any of that. Skiing well and skiing smart. And I ended that season world number 1, and I qualified for the Olympics. It was super exciting, but I remembered my goal. So then it's the winter of 2018. The pressure's on. Everyone is talking about the Olympics. I quite often wondered what sort of state of mind an athlete must be in the night before their Olympic event. Do they even sleep? I just picture them lying in their bed, daydreaming about standing on the top of the podium, wrapped in their nation's flag, smiling to the cameras and celebrating their biggest win ever. This is how the eve of my Olympic event went. I was crying for an hour and a half on the phone to my boyfriend, who was back in France. Everything was hurting. My knee, both my heels, my back, and my self-esteem. We had 3 training days before the Olympics, and it went terribly for me. I was crashing hard, I was hurting myself, and I just completely lost my self-confidence. The stress was through the roof. So it gets to like 8 or 9 p.m. the night before my competition, and there is one last thing that I really need to do: relax. And I tried the whole close your eyes and breathing slowly thing, and it didn't work for me. So I went to a party and had a few glasses of wine. Whoopsie. An Australian snowboarder, Scotty James, had just won a bronze medal in the halfpipe event, and he was celebrating in a nearby hotel. Now, of course, I'm walking to this hotel, and who do I see on the way? My coach. And he's like, "Sarah, where are you going?" "Meeting a sponsor." But I'm so glad that I went to this party, because when Scotty was on stage and he was talking to the cheering crowd, I was so inspired by his calmness and his humble demeanor. And he really reminded me of the reason why I ski. Because it makes me happy. My boyfriend often tells me before I'm stressed out, before a competition, he says, "It's just skiing." And you have no idea how much weight that takes off my shoulders. So then, it's the day of the event, and I woke up with a smile on my face. I'd had a bit of an epiphany, and I realized that it no longer mattered if I came first or last. I'd reset my expectations, I'd lowered my expectations, and I was just so happy to be there. I was an Olympian, and I had absolutely no expectations. What I wanted from this day, actually, was just to show the world what freestyle skiing was all about. I wanted to show my family and friends who were watching on TV and who were there where passion and commitment can lead you. And so this is me, just before I drop, just before my very final run. And this is something that I always do. So I'll fist bump my coach, and then I ski down a little bit, and I'm by myself. And I always look at the course in front of me for a couple of seconds, and I just tell myself, all right, that's it. Have fun. And this is me having fun, clearly. Now, there is a downside to winning big competitions like the Olympics. Actually, I was a little bit worried about winning the Olympics myself. I was scared that I would be demotivated if I did win. And actually, when I was researching this TED Talk, I found that a third of athletes who are in this position, who win major competitions, don't perform as well afterwards. And if you put yourself in their shoes, if this has been something that you've worked for your entire life, the journey ends, and there's nothing left to fight for. And also, when you win that kind of competition, everyone expects so much more of you. You expect so much more of yourself. And so, 2 years on from this day, I'm starting to understand what the real success was for me in this story. And it's not the fact that I've got a few extra Instagram followers. For me, it's just the fact that I just didn't lose the drive to keep skiing and to keep progressing, and that I've managed to stay on top of my game. So a lot of people have asked me, especially journalists, what do you want to do, Sarah? What are your goals now? What do you expect? You've won everything. What are your goals? And also, how much longer do you intend to ski? As if I didn't know that I'm the oldest competitor on the tour. And I always say the same thing. I always ramble on about which ski trick I'm going to learn next, because I know that's something that I can work towards. The truth is, I have absolutely no idea what I want to do in the future. And I realized that this is something that a lot of people are actually in this same position. So this is my advice. Find something that you love. Work hard at it. And then lower your expectations so you can't be disappointed. And then you'll see. It might happen. Thank you very much.